Hello Unlearners, welcome to this episode of the Unlearners podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you joining us on the podcast today, wherever you are watching or listening to this from. It always means so much to me that you've taken the time out of your day, out of your schedule to just dedicate it to your development, to learning, changing and growing. I'm Zanele Njapa, the Unlearning Lady, and this episode of the Unlearners podcast is going to be one for the books. I can definitely say that because when today's guest said something to me, I thought, oh my goodness, this is a conversation I don't just want to have the two of us, but I want the whole world to listen in on this because this is good. If you are someone who is serious about your unlearning journey, but you've noticed yourself hitting a block every now and again, maybe because of all of these biases, these beliefs, this constant reframing that you've needed to do because you find that there's a pattern there. There is a way of doing, being, and seeing that just keeps coming up. When you're in the journey of habit building and really transforming, this episode is for you.
The Unlearners. Learn, change. Learn, change. The Unlearners. The Unlearners. The Unlearners. Learn, change, grow.
So my guest today is none other than Colleen Wilson. Now, Colleen is very, very much, oh my goodness, her focus is around coaching for transformation. So coaching individuals in the transformation journey. But what I really like about your profile, Colleen, is that you say you help people to people better. Oh my goodness. Some catchphrases just stick. Hey? But that one's really good. Welcome to the Unlearners podcast.
Thank you so much. I am super excited to be here with you.
Thank you. I appreciate you making the time. Now, I want to kick off here. I really want to use our time today with so much wisdom because I know you have so much to share. You are a wealth of insights, of knowledge, and of experience. And I introduced the episode by saying there was something that you said to me when we had a conversation not too long ago, and I thought, no, the whole world needs to lean into this. You said to me that at some level, individuals, regardless of where they are, have experienced a level of trauma. And that for me was so interesting because we have a misconception around what trauma is and what trauma isn't. And I'm not traumatized because that person lost a family member, they're traumatized. I'm okay over here because I had this kind of a family and I went through this kind of an upbringing. And then there's that idea. So I want us to start there. You do a lot of work with the Enneagram, which I'm deeply in love with, and we can get into that as and when you see fit. But I want to start there, Colleen. How true is it really, Unlearners, that you and I, regardless of where we are, how we grew up, where we went to school, what we were exposed to, are traumatized at some level?
So I think the blessing and curse of our lockdown period and our COVID period is that it surfaced trauma for the entire world. And so suddenly it became a conversation.
Yeah.
And so if we backtrack a little bit and what is trauma, and there's lots of different definitions and there's the medical definitions, but the one that I like is aligned with what Gabor Mate says, and it's around trauma being not that happens to you, it's about what you make sense and understand about what happens to you. So then it is different from, okay, well, those are traumatic events and those really can't be categorized. It doesn't matter so much about the event. It matters about how you've made sense of it, how you've reconciled it, how it sits in you, what meaning you've made. And so with that in mind, we cannot say that is traumatic and that isn't. It is such a personal journey, right? But having said that, we've all come out of mass global issues and they continue. Okay. And so we might have been deeply affected, if we use COVID as an example, by having lost a family member or lost a business. But regardless of how close or far we were from direct incidents, we all suffered. So there is this mass understanding. And what I see in my work is that took the lid off everybody else's trauma and
Yeah.
stress that they were busy containing and just getting on with their life. And suddenly mental health crises were just at a whole new level. And I've got a very, very close friend who is high up in the medical aids. And the percentages of things like antidepressant use have gone into the multiple hundreds of percentage increases. I don't know the figures off the top of my head, but the indicators are there.
Yeah.
And so COVID is now, we're now sitting in 2024. COVID is well and done. But the trauma that was unseated then has not. It's unresolved. And where the unlearning comes in is that we are not equipped.
Yeah.
We don't know how to deal with it. And that's become a passion area of mine, is navigating those roads with people.
Oh my goodness. And I know you have an entire journey as to when you came into the space, you came into the work that you do now. And I want to get into that as well. But when you were speaking, Colleen, and responding, you reminded me of the story I once heard, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's the story of two monks who are walking together and they're about to cross a bridge. And so these monks have made a vow of celibacy and all sorts of things related to that. And so they're standing at the foot of the bridge, and there is a gorgeous woman at the end of the bridge. And she says, oh my goodness, I'm struggling. I can't get across the bridge on my own. And so one of the monks, the elder one, so it's an elder monk and a younger, still more novice, just joined the organization. The elder monk then picks the lady up, and they walk across the bridge with the lady, and then he puts the lady down on the other side of the bridge. And the entire time, the young monk is just going, And so they get to the edge of the bridge, and the elder monk then puts the lady down, and they keep walking. And the young monk is going, no, I need to say something about what just happened. It's a disgrace. And so he then says, he turns around to the elder monk and he says, okay, I can't keep quiet anymore. How did you manage to pick that lady up? You know you're not allowed. You made a vow. It's completely wrong. Now you need to find a way to make penance or whatever it is. And then the elder monk turns around and he said, I dropped the lady off right at the edge of the bridge. Are you still carrying her? And I've just got goosebumps as I told that, but I think it's that same idea, right? That it's not so much the things that happen to us that lead to the stress, the anxiety, the trauma. It's the interpretation, it's the inference, it's the carrying of the things and the constant replaying in your mind that makes you sick. And that's, oh my goodness, that's such a powerful idea.
It's hugely powerful, absolutely. So I think where we miss a trick in terms of stress and trauma, and I'm gonna bundle them together, is that it's somatic. It's in our bodies, right? And so we might have tried to do some cognitive work, what we call top-down work, where we do talk therapy and we do coaching and we try and we journal and we use our minds to try and resolve trauma. But we've got to use a bottom-up approach as well. We've got to be able to get it out of the body. So I think this is where that we do miss a trick, and we have to unlearn traditional methods of processing stress and trauma. So that's the one thing that's super, super important to understand, is that we are multidimensional. Okay, we are mind, we are body, we are heart, we are spirit. And so when we're going through stuff, we are having a multi-dimensional experience of that, which means that our therapeutic approach needs to be multi-dimensional as well. And we miss that. We tend to be stuck in the mental domain, and we need to drop down into the body, into the emotions, and then if you're so called to, into the spiritual domain as well, and have a holistic focus on your well-being. And that is super, super important for taking things forward. But the other thing that I want to say about this is that our nervous system is like a recording device, okay, in layman's terms. And so we are logging every single thing that happens, and our brains are designed to keep us safe, right? So when we are under stress and we've experienced pain, our brain makes a note. That was painful. That's not something I want to go through again. Okay, note to self. But then our brain gets stuck there, right? So suddenly the dog that bit us becomes a warning sign every time there's a bark. Every bark in the world, every dog in the world, every picture of every dog sparks that response in us. But
99% of those experiences are benign, but our brain doesn't know that because it associates that pain with that dog bite. So we need to then unlearn that association. And our nervous system is recording all of this. So we need to then unlearn and re-record, which is a very, very intentional, conscious process to undertake. It ain't going to happen on its own, right? It is just not going to happen on its own. But understanding that unlearning and programming of the nervous system needs to happen in all the domains of us. It cannot just be a mental domain. So a lot of my work is really around helping people not just do that work within their domains, but also be in an environment with other people that understand them, with other situations that are safe to them, so that nervous systems can have a chance to feel safe and secure, to regulate.
Exactly,
And the more regulated we are, the more we do the work to regulate our nervous system, the more we're able to remove those embedded alarms and those stressors and that deadline and that cash flow crisis and that relationship stress and that health worry, and so it goes. So we've got to have a strategy, multidimensional strategy, to bring good stuff into our nervous system to balance out those pressures that are very real parts of everyday life.
I like that. And I want to go into what a bottom up would look like. As you mentioned top down, but I want to go through that. And before I do, maybe let's assist our unlearners to qualify, because we started off with a very bold statement around trauma, and then we made it really relevant so everyone could see that at some level they are possibly carrying something. So is there a way for us to be able to check in and go, oh, okay, that's what it is, or oh yeah, there is something there? Is there a way that you often help your clients to pick that up? Is it related maybe to their body? Is it something they would need to go into meditation to pick up? Is there just a quick little test that they can do, hand on heart or whatever it is?
Absolutely, 100%. So there's a technique called interoception, which is understanding how our body is signaling to us. Now, our body is in conversation with us 24/7, 365. We're just not so good at listening. Okay. So interoception are those signs that are coming in through the body, and also through our emotions, and also then through our behaviors, where when we become tuned into ourselves, we get to then build our awareness of our levels of arousal, of stress, to get to the point where we've redlined. Okay, so ideally we want to catch that early. So it's different for different people. And it's about understanding what your own signals will be to understand that you're becoming stressed, or that an old trauma is being triggered, and being able to read that. So it might be that your heartbeat quickens. It might be that you have a feeling of dread in your gut. It might be that your stomach starts gurgling. It might be that your neck goes tense. Headache. Vision is a big one. People start to feel like bright lights are too much. So if you think about it, our nervous system is our sensory receptive organ. So as soon as any senses become too much, then we must go, why is this shopping center feeling so much for me? Why is my phone buzzing, making it, just feeling like it's overwhelming me? It's just a phone buzzing, for goodness sake, what is that? Why this place smells too busy, or there's too strong of smell. And so any of those sensory inputs, as soon as we feel like they are too much, instead of blaming the input, go, okay, why am I battling to process this? Okay, so it's those kind of signals that are happening all the time that we can use to remind us that something is not happy inside. Our brain's signaling this is we need to seek safety, or we need to do the work to bring our brain back to safety and say, no, this meeting's absolutely fine.
It's okay, you're safe.
Okay. You're good. The last meeting didn't go so well, but you know what, we've done the work and we're actually fine. So we can then learn to consciously override, but we can't consciously override unless we've picked up the signal in advance. So it's about really building that self-awareness inside of us, keying into ourselves, seeing ourselves. And it's a skill.
It's a practice. Exactly. It's a practice that you can build over time until it becomes a default.
That's it.
You don't have to apply yourself as much anymore because you've learned it. So how did you come into this work? You are so passionate, and there's so much there that I could listen to you all day. You know this. That coffee shop, I was struggling to let you go. But I want to understand how you came into this work. And I really want our unlearners to see the beautiful connection between where you are now and the impact that you're making when it comes to helping individuals regulate their nervous systems, but tap into transformation. So how did that happen? Have you ever been to one of those retreats that when you come back, you feel like, oh my goodness, I'm a different person? Well, the unlearning experience is exactly one of those. Because if you go to the unlearning experience, you're not just experiencing a transformation retreat. You are literally taking 3 beautiful days, gifting them to yourself all the way from Friday up until Sunday, experiencing master classes that are powerful, workshops that will engage you. You are creating your journey and purpose for the coming year, taking stock of the year you are closing off. If you're someone who's transforming, the unlearning experience is for you. It's one of those retreats, and I'm not just saying this. This is the feedback we've received from previous retreat attendees, that the unlearning experience is life-changing. And so if you're ready for life-changing kinds of results, you're going to make sure you've got your ticket to the unlearning experience.
Okay, so it happened in my own home. And at that stage, and my kids are now 15 and 20, at that stage, work was going really well. But I would come home and I had just no sense of kind of agency over this role of motherhood. I was completely thrown by it. And I felt stressed and I felt exhausted and I was highly reactive. And then I realized that I was doing some damage because my kids were both sensitive, both ADHD, both with a bit of anxiety, and they needed me to show up differently to them. And so I did the work to bring a different version of myself forward, realizing that their nervous systems were sensitive. Okay. And in the process of that, realized that actually my nervous system was sensitive as well, but I had been pushing so hard for so long. So A student, cum laude in varsity, management positions young, partying hard, working hard, just doing it all at the wall. And thinking that I had it all together and I was coping. But actually when I had these kids and they were both sensitive, their nervous systems are beautifully sensitive. We call it highly sensitive people, HSP. But I realized I had been masking for so long. And at that point, I hit the wall and I ended up with pneumonia, TB, and about a 20-year journey with trying to pull my health back in line again. And so that was my learning about stress and sensitivity and the nervous system. So I'm an Enneagram 5. So of course, when I hit a challenge in my life, what do? I go and study it. Okay. So I started diving in then, way back then, into stress, neurodivergence, including ADHD, anxiety, depression, overwhelm, burnout, trauma, all of those kind of topics to say, okay, how am I going to do this better in my own home? And then having practiced that, created material, developed courses around conscious parenting, conscious leadership, conscious educating, a lot of it about how do we handle challenging and stressful behaviors and actions from people in those 3 environments, at home, at work, at school. And what do we need to do in those environments to create environments that are conducive to people with complexity, people with sensitive nervous systems, people with neurodivergence? How do we all need to be around people to bring out the best in them? So it was a very personal journey that then I took from my own laboratory back into the workplace to then offer the work on. And we've just evolved from them. When you get to 48, you've done a lot of work, you've seen a lot of things, you've studied a lot of courses, you've had a lot of experience, and it's just grown organically, like out of my own personal laboratory.
So with where you are there, what would you say has been your biggest unlearning? The point where you went, wow, I could literally slice my life in half. That version of me and this version of me, what would that be?
I can totally and utterly tell you what it is. And not that it had it was Wednesday at 3:00 25 years ago. I can't tell you that exactly, but I can tell you that when I became a mum and I started feeling very conflicted with the voice of society and my voice within. And I had these kids and they were highly sensitive, and there was this paradigm of existence that we were supposed to walk down. This is what education looked like, and this is what healthcare looked like, and this is what parenting looked like. And I just felt so uncomfortable with so much of that. And I never regarded myself as a nonconformist or an anti-establishment person at all. And I don't like to rock the boat.
Yeah.
But I learned to listen to my own voice, to the point that I haven't had a GP since I had TB. So my healthcare is all alternative. It's all complementary. My kids from 6 years ago are out of the mainstream education system, alternative education. You know, it was just, when I say it wasn't a line in the sand, I've had to grow and trust my own voice and what resonates as truth for me, which is often at odds with what's that truth with the majority out there in society. Okay. And that's been my big unlearning, is to listen and then to comply and stay in my own lane.
Yeah.
And keep finding the courage to do that, to the point where now I'm extremely comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. But unpicking from all of those establishments, the education establishment, the health establishment, even the way business was done, I'm not interested. I want to resonate with you. I want integrity in our relationships. I'm not going to work with you if it's just about the rand and it's not about the human element. So that journey to really listen to the voice within has been my biggest unlearning. Yeah,
that's brilliant. I love that. That resonates so deeply with me. It's truly profound how you've come to that point and how you leverage that. And I often say that nothing happens in isolation. And sometimes it only happens in isolation because that's how we're viewing it, but also maybe that's how we're using it. Because what happened or the circumstances that you found yourself in have led to something so beautiful to so many people. And I mean, Colleen, you do such fantastic work, and to know that there are so many people who will watch this and listen to it, but also have been helped by you, whose lives will never ever be the same because of insights you've shared, because of an aha moment they had when you said something. It's truly profound. It really is profound. And I hope when you look back, you can see those dots coming together and go, oh my goodness, this is so cool.
No, 100%. I mean, I literally wrote a post today saying, this is the work that I do, but I don't call it work because it doesn't feel like work. A, because I love it.
Yeah.
And B, because I live my work. So there's no barrier between where I stop and the work that I do starts, because it is me. It is in me. And it's just about helping people then find the courage that they need to walk in their own lane, to be true to themselves, to understand their stress response, to step into their greatness, to step into their wholeness, to whatever it is. It's this incredible privilege to help people better, because I feel like I've learned to people better, but I've kind of journeyed the hard yards.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be as hard as the journey that I went on. You know, there's always going to be the pain for gain, for sure. You're not just going to click your fingers and become evolved. But I can definitely, and I do help people fast track that, you know, far more than I had.
Yeah.
And I think that's the gifting and the joy, is that I went through it, I've distilled it, I've understood it deeply, I've lived it, I still live it, and then I get to share it on. And that, it's just every day I wake up incredibly privileged and excited at getting to do this work, not work.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I've never heard anyone describe it that way. You live your work. And I think sometimes when we have, especially the corporate conversation, we do a lot of work within the corporate space at the Unlearners, but there's the constant work-life balance conversation. And now it's been called work-life integration. But often when I'm ever invited to do something like that, Colleen, the main idea is, hey, just by the way, work is life. It's part of life. It's not two separate things. Let's just start there. Because I think that's a misconception that then causes us to go, oh, I'm going to work. Oh, now I'm living my life. But actually, you and I have an opportunity to merge the two and to understand that work is a way to live life. I mean, so many of us actually, work is the only place we really get to change people's lives in the most impactful way. So there is that beautiful integration. I love how you outlined that and you made it so clear as to how you do it. So here's where I want to close off, Colleen.
Okay.
I want to close off with those strategies like we spoke about. So you touched on top down. And that's where we spend a lot of our time. Those are the main strategies that we are implementing, maybe even having conversations about with people who are supporting us on our transformation journeys. So what does bottom up then look like? And then are there maybe some key strategies that people can think about now? They've put hand on heart, they know where they are. They're so inspired by you. They're probably already stalking you on the side. What now? Is there something that they can do?
Yes.
Moving forward?
Absolutely, 100%. So very simply, this is the way that I like to put it forward, is that if we're not feeling well, or if we want to nourish our bodies, we have a beautiful plate of food, and we make sure that it's balanced, and we take it in, and it feeds our immune system and our gastric system, and that's how we have a healthy input.
Yeah.
But what is the healthy input to the nervous system? Okay, and this is where I see it as a plate that we feed our nervous system. So the gateways into the nervous system are the 5 senses.
Okay.
So, and this sounds ridiculously, stupidly simple, and it is, okay? Bottom up is just about engaging the senses. So what can you see that's beautiful? Put it into your nervous system. Look at the clouds outside, look at the sunset, look at this flower on the table. Find anything. Scroll Instagram if you want to for beautiful sights of rainbows and waterfalls. It doesn't matter. Pull something visual that's in. What can you taste that's amazing? Taste something beautiful, just your lunch, but taste it and savor it. Put it into your nervous system. Smell, touch. So all the senses are gateways into the nervous system, so use them as such. And then, so I've got very specific practices. I love essential oils. I make sure I use them all through the day. From, a touch point of view, I've got a heat pad, and when it's winter, and I put it on my shoulders while I'm typing and I'm working, because it's the heat, and it's soft and it's heavy, so it's beautiful, it feels good. It's all of these kind of tactile, visual, auditory, gastric, olfactory, sensory experiences that we can pull in. Okay, and then the last 2 senses are vestibular and proprioceptive. And proprioceptive is so simple. It's anything that you can push or pull.
Okay.
So you can even be sitting in a meeting and just push down on the chair a little bit, because you need to get some, because that weight will just have a positive input into your nervous system. Or you can just push your hands together like this, or you can pull your hands like this. So you can even be sitting under the table. Nobody even knows that you are pulling.
Won't they see your face tense up?
Hopefully you're not, because you just learned to do it so beautifully. But you can do it before a meeting, you can do it after, you can do it in the morning, you can do plank, downward dog, you can push against a wall, bounce on a Pilates ball, do some swinging exercises, anything. Just understand that it's feeding the nervous system. So you almost, like that nourishing meal, you're building up credit in the bank of your nervous system. So put in the positive inputs to build the credit. So then when you walk into the stressful meeting, or you take the stressful phone call, you've got credit in your nervous system. So you healthy inputs, and then also when you finish the stressful experience, go and do some of those too, because you would have lost some credits through the stress. So go and top up again. So, and it doesn't need to be a half-hour nervous system thing. 5 minutes here, 30 seconds there, 10 seconds there, 1 minute there. You just build it into your day, and then it becomes part of how you live your life. How beautiful.
I like the credit system. That's very clever.
Yeah.
And it sort of gamifies it. And I think that's
Totally.
a big part of habit building. You want to increase the ease and decrease the friction.
Correct.
And gamification always will increase the ease.
And integrating it into your day.
Exactly.
So while you're brushing your teeth, bounce on the back of your feet. When you get out of the bath or shower, do some, press your weight down. You don't have to go and do another thing in your schedule.
True.
You just learn to build these things in. If you're sitting next to your desk, I've got a diffuser, put essential oils in, you're working, you're spelling, you're not even thinking about it. It's cost you no time. So that's also the way I like to work, is that it's really integrated into our life and it becomes part of what we do.
And you did touch on environments as well during the conversation today.
Yes.
That it is really about finding little hacks or anchors in your environment that can then support that process. Yeah.
Safe places, create them even even by putting your AirPods in or your headphones on
Yeah.
and creating a safe place because you're listening to something beautiful and you're in a bubble for a moment. So it's just about understanding what is feeding our nervous system favorably and doing more of that. A lot of it is just down to choice. You know, you've got the knowledge.
Now
It's just
what?
the choice to do it. Exactly. Yeah. So how much do you value having a nervous system that's regulated? Because that'll answer it for you. Yeah.
Oh, Colleen, thank you so much for this conversation. This was so good.
So glad to be here. Thank you.
Really appreciated your time. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. And you.
Thank you so much. All right, unlearners, that's it for today's conversation. I'm glowing. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm glowing from this conversation, from your energy, Colleen, but also from the discussion we've just had today. And I hope that you found it just as valuable as I did. Please make sure that you subscribe to our channel. And if you are someone who loves your downtime, but not just downtime to rest and sip a pina colada, but also to transform, make sure that you have signed up for our annual retreat, the Unlearning Experience, in November every single year. So regardless of when you are watching this, we've probably got a retreat in November. Thank you so much, unlearners, for listening and watching this podcast of this episode of the Unlearners podcast. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a huge pleasure. And it's myself, Zanele Njapa, the Unlearning Lady, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
The Unlearners. Learn, change, grow. Learn, change, grow. The Unlearners. The Unlearners. The Unlearners. Learn, change, grow.